Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. We are presented by Rally House on this Thursday. Dave Refson and Jake Butt. We have football tomorrow. Sneaks up on us.
We got conference play tomorrow. We got a couple conference clashes.
Conference play on Saturday.
Excuse me, what's today? Thursday.
Today's Thursday.
This weekend, yeah, they all blend together. Right around the corner, we got conference play. Why does it feels like the offseason is so slow.
Yeah.
And then you get into camp, you blink, and here we are into conference games already.
Yes.
Let's enjoy it. It's going to fly by.
We are going to enjoy it. We're going to talk about those games, 2 conference games, and a whole bevy of others to discuss. So let's get into our big story, which is presented by Rally House, and it is the Week 3 schedule in the Big Ten. How better to look at it than through the big board? As I mentioned, 2 games tomorrow. They're both here on the Big Ten Network. Indiana and Indiana State. UCLA looking to get into the win column, hosting New Mexico. Saturday is highlighted by those 2 conference games Jake was alluding to, Oregon, Northwestern, USC, Purdue. We have 4 games on the Big Ten Network, including potential history in Iowa City, as Kirk Ferentz looks to pass Woody Hayes for first place on the all-time conference wins list. Jake, you wanted to talk offenses today, and I am here for it. I'm excited. So you've got 4 that really interest you heading into this weekend. And let's start with Penn State. I don't think many people expect Penn State to get a huge challenge from Villanova this week, but they've got a bye week, and then they've got Oregon. So this is the week to kind of get their offense into gear. What have you seen so far, and what do you want to see this weekend?
I think the challenge for Penn State is, irregardless of the opponent, it's mental. You know, and expectations are a double-edged sword. We all believe that Penn State is capable of competing for a national championship this year, but that does carry a certain weight. And I say that to say this. For Penn State, for Drew Aller, for Singleton, you don't need to try to do something. Be who you are. You don't have to think about something. Go do it. The talent for Drew Aller is undeniable. He's a first-round talent at his best, a top 10 pick, certainly capable of it. Singleton, at his best, same exact thing you could say, one of the best running backs in college football. But what I see on tape right now is guys thinking. They're carrying a weight, almost like they're trying to prove something. When you talk about you ever hear the word flow state? You know, when everything's clicking, it's when Steph Curry's hitting shots
in the zone.
He's not thinking. That is just falling right off his hand. And right now it feels like through 2 weeks that it's the mental expectations that are the own worst enemy of Penn State's best players. I think Matt Rule had a great speech at halftime of the Akron game last week. Take it personal. Make it personal, especially in the run game for Penn State. Make it personal that people are wondering what's going on. It's good to have a chip on your shoulder. Singleton, this is what the opportunity is this week, to go out there and play free, play like you're capable of playing, have fun, play with joy, play with the spirit that we've seen and come to know and love of you guys, because this is the last opportunity before bye week and before you're hosting Oregon.
So it's interesting. You're talking a lot about mental stuff here. Is there anything you're seeing schematically? I mean, it's just weird to me, Jake, that this is a team, like last year they led the Big Ten in plays of 20 yards or longer. This year, and again, small sample size, I get it, but they're 10th in plays of 20 yards or longer. So is there something else at work here, or is it simply what you're talking about, mentally not executing as well as they could what's been put in front of them?
I don't believe play calls are the issue. I believe they're so close. They're so close, but it's one little thing. And, you know, the best running backs, there's a few times where Penn State had a well-blocked play and Singleton is untouched into the second level. It's 7 yards before he gets touched. The best running backs take a play that's blocked for 7 yards and they turn it into a 15, 20, 30-yard gain. Right now, Singleton's only getting a 7-yard block play, 7 or 8 yards. Drew Aller, we raved about how he looked in the opening weekend. Missing receivers, there's dropped passes. They're so close. I say this because on any given play, 10 guys will be right, 1 guy's wrong, and in football, that's all it takes to leave meat on the bone. And that's what this is, because they're fine. They're having success. They're putting up points. But when we talk about the standard of what this season will be, it takes all 11 guys straining and playing without regard for the next play. Strain and give it your all on that very given play, and let's just see what happens. Because I think good things will happen.
You almost wonder if it's the lack of perceived challenges on the schedule that have them playing in this way. And you lots of different scheduling philosophies. We'll get to Michigan here. They played Oklahoma in week 2, and so that's going to expose some issues if you're not where you want to be offensively. Those issues got exposed. The pass game in particular didn't click. How much of it was Bryce Underwood? How much was the O-line? How much was the wide receivers? I think all of those are fair questions. But if you're not playing a team of that level, if you're Penn State, you can kind of sleepwalk through it to a certain extent. Michigan did not have that luxury. So what did you see from them as they prepare for a game you're going to be calling this week, and what do you want to see from them as they take on Central Michigan?
It's a great point about what gets revealed when you play against the best teams. And what we saw, and I know we talked about this on Tuesday, it just felt like Michigan's offense was a team that's caught between the past and the future. And I think they have to ask the question of, it's a different question to say, who do we want to be? Because that's forward-looking. It's something you're working towards. What you want to do is something you're working towards versus who are we right now? And when you say who are we right now, it takes into account your personnel, it takes into account injuries, it takes into account what's the best formula for us to succeed. Obviously, who Michigan wants to be every single year is a dominant rushing attack. They don't have an offensive line to win the Joe Moore Award.
Can you include Underwood in the run game a little bit? That is an area where like you look nationally, they have the third fewest rushing attempts from the quarterback of any team in the country.
That's crazy.
It's crazy because you see how athletic he can be. And maybe they're trying to protect him because we know Mikey Keene, at least in camp, was not 100%. And maybe they feel like we don't have a great solution behind him and we just can't get him hurt. But especially in a game of that caliber, like at a certain point, you're like, well, we need to win the game.
Yeah.
And maybe we can win the game against Oklahoma. It's hindsight's 2020. Maybe we could have won the game against Oklahoma had we run the quarterback.
So that's exactly, and that's a microcosm of the Oklahoma game plan in general, which is, hey, maybe we need to protect our quarterback. Maybe we need to be a little conservative. Maybe we need to be a little bit safe. Well, that was the game plan in general. And, I'm watching Monday Night Football. Ravens, Bills, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, week one, Sunday Night Football, week one of the NFL season. And those guys are saying on any given play, what is the best play? We're going to run our quarterback right now because tomorrow's not promised. We're going to call the best play that gives ourselves the best chance to succeed. I understand there's risk to injuring your quarterback. There's risk on any given play. There's risk in practice. And I think it would especially help Bryce. First off, he's 230 pounds. He's a big guy. I look at him, I'm like, you could play tight end if you wanted.
Yeah, no, he's physically imposing.
But think about what as a young quarterback, you just want to feel confident, like you're helping the offense succeed. And one of the best traits he has is his athleticism. So I think that's a great opportunity this week to allow him to run the football. Because the other thing is you don't have to run him 20 times a game, every game this season, but you have to put it on tape so opponents then have to factor that into their game prep.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this. Jerry DiNardo and I have talked about this for close to 20 years, about as an offensive coordinator, your goal is just to make people worry about what they have to defend. And even if you just run them 5-6 times a game, once or twice a quarter, it's then something else you have to defend, which can open everything else up, particularly given that it doesn't feel like they're great on the flank this year. So if you can loosen up the coverage a little bit, it seems like it would help. What about Michigan State? So we got Michigan on our air this week, the game you're going to be calling. We have Michigan State and Youngstown State as well. And Michigan State's got to be feeling great offensively. And they scored more points against a power conference team than they've scored in nearly 10 years against Boston College. And it feels like Aiden Childs now and this passing offense are finding their rhythm. So what do you want to see as they try to move forward against Youngstown?
It's a whole different challenge dealing with positive expectations now, too. It's like the inverse of what we're talking about with Michigan and Penn State. But for Childs, you can't draw up a better start to this season. Everything we were hoping to see from him, we have seen on tape. He's been phenomenal with the football. The ball security's been there. Only lost one fumble so far in the season. And I think what we're seeing, too, is week one, I don't know how many different offensive line combinations they played, but they're slowly working down to what's the best 5 on any given week, maybe 7 or 8 that we rotate. That's going to benefit Childs in the run game. And what I'm also seeing, Nick Marsh, as a true sophomore, he is blossoming into a star. That 3rd and goal touchdown, that was big-time football. He made that happen on his back, fighting for every single yard. The explosive touchdown, great for him. But then there was a quote that came out, I think it was in the post game, where before half, he goes up to Jonathan Smith on the sideline and says, "Coach, they're playing me one-on-one. Give me the dang ball." That is exactly what I want to hear out of my wide receiver one, especially a young guy, because it tells me he's playing with all the confidence in the world. And talk about his talent combined with what Childs is capable of doing. makes for a dangerous recipe.
And it's a pick your poison situation now. Like, it was hard to play him, one-on-one last year, or easier to play him one-on-one, I should say, last year, or even two-on-one last year, because there was no one else that worried you. But now you got Omari Kelly, who's having a really good season here early on, and all of a sudden, if you can't afford to, you have to be one-on-one a little bit more with Nick Marsh, because you got to account for Kelly as well. So they're a much more difficult team to cover than they were a season ago.
Tight ends too, and Jack Velling, I know he was working through something when we saw him in camp. He's probably not 100% the way we're seeing, but when he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in college football. So there's little elements that are and that's what this game is about this weekend too, is add another element without sacrificing ball security.
And they've opened up the run game too. They're up about 50 yards per game.
O-line run blocking has been much improved.
No doubt, yeah, and you could see the O-line was better when we were at camp. All right, what about Wisconsin? This was a really bad offense a season ago. There was a lot of excitement over what they could be this year. They're kind of going back to their roots and re-emphasizing the run game. They got Billy Edwards, and then he gets hurt in the first game. Danny O'Neal's come in. I would say Danny O'Neal's played pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
But now you got a huge challenge. You're going down to Alabama. It sounds like Edwards, there are reports out there saying it's unlikely that he would play. Again, nothing official from Wisconsin at this point. But how do you attack a game like this against Alabama?
It really is mental too, and it's hard probably to not feel snake bitten if you're Luke Fickell, and if you're in the locker room when you consider they've went to the transfer portal now 3 straight years for a quarterback, and they spend all offseason pouring into a guy, investing, saying, here's our leader, you're going to be the guy to lead this offense. And now for the 3rd straight year, Billy Edwards gets injured. Hopefully, not long term, we'll see him back sooner than later. But thank God for Danny O'Neal, because he looked efficient. And ultimately, what it's going to be for Wisconsin is, can they run the ball? And it's very similar to Michigan State. There's been a shuffling of the offensive line. Luke Fickell spoke to this. You expect some, mishaps, missed snaps, missed blocking assignments when you're shuffling guys and playing young guys. But, that's where it's going to be on Jeff Grimes as a play caller. It looked like they tried a ton of different things. They're just trying to figure out who they want. But when you're shuffling offensive lines around, you're playing these young guys, it might actually help you to come in with condense the game plan. Come in with 4 or 5 run plays that are your bread and butter and say, guys, this is what we're going to focus on all week. Whether it's gap scheme or zone scheme, this is going to be who we are. Let's practice this. Let's make a decision with our 5, and let's work on it going forward, because especially on the road in Alabama, but it's true throughout the whole season. They got to find a way to run the ball consistently, and they haven't been able to get that done yet.
Well, it's cut and dried with Wisconsin. They're 13-0 under Luke Fickell when they run for 150 yards or more. They're 1-13 when they don't. So bottom line, they have to figure out a way to run the ball to win games. It's the way that they're built. Yeah. It's going to be tough sledding against Alabama. And like Tretch Kakahuna had the big long run last week. I mean, it's
their leading rusher.
It can come from different guys. It can come in unconventional ways, but ultimately they don't run if they don't.
The screen game too. And this is where, I wonder, it doesn't get measured in the stats, but they use screens and bubble screens and smoke screens as an extension of the run game. And I saw some nice things there, but certainly room to improve.
Got to start fast, too. They have yet to score first quarter point this year. 0 first quarter points through their first 2 games. Dave Rivs and Jake Buck back with you as we continue to get you set for the weekend ahead in Big Ten football. Let's focus in on Oregon and Northwestern, one of those 2 conference games we talked about. Man, the Ducks have been crazy good so far this year. They spent a large portion of last year as the #1 team in the country. After watching them through 2 games this year, Jake, I'd say it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they find themselves in that spot again at some point this year. So what do you think about this matchup against a Northwestern team that looked really poor in week 1, but improved significantly in week 2?
Yeah, and the road factor does change this. That's a long flight for Oregon to hop onto a flight, come here. You're playing off of Lake Michigan. There's always some wind there. But I just look at Oregon. They're playing like a team that is inspired. They're playing with so much spirit. You can feel the connectedness and togetherness, and I give so much credit to Dan Lanning for the direction he has this program going. And everyone's going to talk about, and we should acknowledge what they have on the outside, the weapons. You see the highlights here offensively, but what's really stood out to me here through 2 games now is the trench play for Oregon. The offensive line, even replacing all the snaps that they had to replace this offseason, has been absolutely dominant. Dante Moore gets to sit back in that pocket. He can drink a cup of coffee, and then his talent shows up. Defensive line, people just turn on the defensive highlight tapes. It is really, really remarkable. I mean, they might have 2 first-rounders, Uiagalelei and Amari Washington, certainly capable of it. Tuioti on the other side is probably the most underrated defensive lineman in the entire conference. And then what we've seen because of some of the way the games have gone early, some freshmen have started to play, Nazir Wyatt and Aiden Breland, guys that are just completely dominating as young guys, so they're building depth. Another thing defensively is they're starting to add wrinkles, and we'll give credit what Ohio State did with Caleb Downs last year and early this year. They've like invented a new position because they think Caleb Downs is that talented. I think Dylan Thieneman is that talented, and we saw this last week against Oklahoma State where Oregon started to put Thieneman about in that same position, 8 yards in the box. The O-line and tight ends can't account for him in the run game. But he's so instinctual and so smart that he triggers, and they build plus numbers, and it makes it so hard to run the football against Oregon. So we expect them to be able to put up points every single week. It'll be a challenge for Northwestern's defense to stop them. You got to force turnovers if you can in this game. But I think it'll be even more challenging to move the ball on Oregon's defense with the way they're playing, and especially with Cam Porter being out.
Worry a little bit about Northwestern's offensive line. Even in that game against Western Illinois where they ran for a ton of yards, there were still a bunch of short yardage situations where they lined up and needed a yard or two and just couldn't get them running straight ahead. And then particularly without Cam Porter, who was kind of their toughest, most physical back, it makes you wonder a little bit about that. And just in general, you talk about that defensive front for Oregon. It feels like offensive line is a challenge for Northwestern. And then Thieneman, you can't turn the ball over. I mean, give Preston Stone credit. Clean sheet last week, but that opener against Tulane is really concerning from Northwestern's point of view. So should be a great scene out there on the lakefront. We're going to talk to Joel Klatt in a bit. He'll be calling that game, so we'll get more on that one. But what about USC and Purdue? It's interesting. Oregon is 3rd in the nation in scoring right now, Jake. USC is 1st. This is the highest scoring team in the country. Purdue certainly seems improved. I mean, I don't mean this in a mean way, but it's not a high bar to say they're improved over where they were last year, but they seem significantly improved. And so now you get this challenge of USC coming in, clicking on all cylinders. How do you see this one?
Yeah, well, I'll just start with Purdue and just give a ton of credit to Barry Odom. I mean, going back to media days, they had no idea. They couldn't honestly answer who they thought their quarterback was going to be. It was a 3 or 4 man competition. And then in comes Ryan Brown, and he's been excellent as just the commander and the leader and the operator of the offense. And for what they've needed to do to start the season, they've done exactly their job to allow themselves to feel confident in this game. Another home game. USC has not won in the Eastern time zone since 2012. They lost all 3 opportunities last year. Kenyon Sadiq, Oregon's tight end, was asked at Big Ten Media Days, what's the toughest road environment that you played in? Do you know what he said?
I'm going to guess Purdue.
Purdue.
Yeah, they were charged up. If you remember that game, now Oregon took them out of it rather quickly.
Yes.
But I remember the environment being incredible at the outset of that game.
And it will be once again. I mean, those fans are proud. They love their program. It's the spoiler makers. They kind of have that identity of wanting to ruin a team's season. So this is a great test for Lincoln Riley. It does not shock me, the offensive scoring numbers, the passing numbers. I expect that every single year. But what is really positive is their commitment to the run game and their success in the run game. They lead the country in yards per carry. That's phenomenal. That shows blocking technique, strain from the wide receivers outside. We know we're going to get you the ball, but they're the ones springing some of those runs. And then we talked about it. They lead the Big Ten in sacks, in TFLs, top 5 in the FBS in sacks in TFLs. But Lincoln Riley, we understand the schedule, the opponent. Lincoln Riley has held his team to a higher standard. He said some of the things that are working through 2 games will not work against better opponents. Purdue is a better opponent. It's going to be a step up in competition. So vulnerabilities, they will be revealed in this game. You have to play to your standard, and I'm excited to see it because it's even harder to do on the road from an execution standpoint.
I love the point you bring up about the run game. I think we may have mentioned this yesterday, but if you think about the really great Lincoln Riley offenses at Oklahoma, I know everyone talks about Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, and that was a huge part of it, and that's the headline. But when his offenses were really good at Oklahoma, they could run the ball, and man, Wayman Jordan can run the ball.
Yes, and they can block, and it just becomes an equation because what do you take away? You can't take it away. They do everything well. So that's impressive. Credit to Lincoln Riley.
Looking forward to both those conference games coming up this weekend. We'll get more from Jake coming up in a bit. But next, Joel Klatt will join me. Speaking of exciting quarterbacks and exciting teams, you are going to see one this week. Dante Moore's been fabulous for Oregon. You've got that game against Northwestern. Going to be a fabulous setting. Can't wait for you to get out here. I was out there on Friday night. I know they're really excited to have the Big Noon crew out and checking out the lakefront and getting set to open up the new stadium a year from now. They're going up against a team, Northwestern is, in Oregon, that, man, is clicking on all cylinders. I was listening to Dan Lanning's news conference here on the Big Ten Network this week, Joel, and he said his team graded out, I think he said 72%.
Yeah.
In that game.
I heard that too. I was like, holy cow.
What does 100% look like? He won by 66 points against
what
the
does
power
82% look
exactly.
like?
Yeah.
Rev, like, what does a B look like for Oregon? Oh, my goodness. I'm with you.
Low C.
Yeah, low C minus. You know, so I hesitate because it's early. But I did this on my show, so I'll say it here. When I watch Oregon on film, I think I'm seeing the best team in the country.
Wow.
They are built exactly right to win it all. Defense is built perfectly. Then you've got this fast offense with an offensive line that we had question marks about because they had 3 transfers. And now I turn on the film and I'm watching these 3 transfers play and I'm like, oh my gosh. I think they're the best offensive line in the country. And Dante Moore, man, he is talented. I don't want to be like hyperbolic. I've watched everybody on tape this year so far. That's the best team I've seen on tape.
It's pretty amazing, too, Joel, when you think about last year at the beginning of the year, we were all wringing our hands. You know, the close game against Boise State, which ended up being a playoff team, but the close game against Idaho as well. And then you see how much better they got during the course of the year, where they ended up being a team that was #1 for the bulk of the season and went into the playoff as #1. I mean, that's a little frightening. You think about all the roster turnover they had this year, and to see where they are now, 2 games into the season, and extrapolate the improvement they made last year makes your head spin a little.
I can't wait for that whiteout game.
Yeah, at Penn State. Yep.
Right? I mean, like, that's not to look over this week. I can't wait to see them live. I really can't. And Northwestern has a huge task. I would say this about Evanston at 11 Central. Weird things happen. There have been some really good teams. You know this.
Yes.
I know you know this.
Yes.
There have been some really good teams find themselves late in the third quarter in 1-score games, and they're like, whoa, what's going on right here? You know, what's happening right now? So that's certainly something to pay attention to this week.
Well, they've had some pretty good teams, certainly over the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, played for 2 Big Ten titles.
No doubt. Northwestern has been no slouch, won 3 Big Ten titles under Gary Barnett and Randy Walker between the 2 of them. Now, I'm not sure that this is a team.
When you can bring up Gary Barnett, with me
your coach.
That's just going to bring a big smile on my face. I love that man. What a great man.
I'm not sure that this is a team, and I don't say this to slight them in any way. I'm not sure this is a team that's going to be in contention for that. But what's their formula? I know you've started studying tape. What's their formula to hang around in this game?
Well, it's like any upset, which would be you have to steal possessions somehow, so create turnovers. You got to be probably +2 or +3 in the turnover margin. When you get those turnovers, you cannot punt the football. So in some way, shape, or form, you have to put points on the board. And then the other part of this is that you've got to retain possession. You know, if Oregon gets 60 snaps offensively, that's not a good equation for Northwestern. But if you can limit them to 50, 51 total snaps, now you're talking. So you've got to shorten the game, retain the football, hold it for 36, 37 minutes. That comes down to running the ball well on first down, and then your quarterback has got to be great on third down to convert and keep your offense on the field. That's really the equation. That's the blueprint for how this happens.
Well, I don't want to be a cynic, but Oklahoma State held them to 3 snaps in their first 2 possessions, and Oregon had 14 points.
There's different ways to limit their snaps. I think you know what I'm talking about. Absolutely. I think it was the 3rd and 4th play of the game were both 80-yard touchdowns. I'm like, well, that's not the way to do it.
That is not the way to do it. All right, Joel, great stuff. Looking forward to having you and Gus and Jenny in town. We have ordered up, just so you know, Chamber of Commerce weather for you. So,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You will enjoy yourself in our fair city.
Cannot wait.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
All right, Joel, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
You bet. Have a good day.
This season, Michigan punter Hudson Hollenbeck is honoring his late mother, Gina, through Punting Cancer Away. It's a partnership with the University of Michigan's Rogel Cancer Center that turns every punt into support for lung cancer research and treatment. Ashley Adamson sat down with Hollenbeck to learn more about it.
Hudson, thank you so much for doing this. We'll talk through the nuts and bolts of Punting Cancer Away, but I want to start where it starts for you, which is with your mom, Gina. I'm wondering if you would share a story that captures who she was and what you kind of hope people who didn't get to meet her understand about her.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. First of all, this is an awesome opportunity. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to share some stuff about my mom, who means a lot to me. Some things to know about my mom, definitely is just her optimistic personality. She was in a long, hard-fought battle with lung cancer. She was actually someone who never smoked a day in her life. Yet she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and us as a family were kind of confused as to why that was. But the type of person my mom was, she was one to look at the positives, through it all. She was very faithful, was very close to God through all of it, and that was one of the biggest pieces that allowed her to be so inspirational to so many people, and especially to me now. I carry this with me through everything that I do here at Michigan, and through the rest of my life. That's something that means a lot to me. But something she was known for was a quote that she always talked about. And the quote goes like this: It's two men sat behind prison bars. One man saw the stars or the mud on the ground, and while the other saw the stars in the sky. So what's your perspective on life? Are you going to see the mud or stars? So that's something I carry with me to this day, because, life is full of trials and tribulations. My mom definitely faced that. We all face that. And I think that when you ask yourself that question, it kind of puts into perspective, what there is to be grateful for and what there is to fight for. And I think that is something that was really important to a lot of people that knew her. So
I appreciate you sharing all of that. And you mentioned something that I think, from what I understand, is a major goal of this campaign, which is changing the stigma that lung cancer is not just a smoker's disease. So what do you want people to understand about stories like your mom?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom's lung cancer was a gene mutation, and we're still kind of unsure as to why it happened. It wasn't very evident in her family history. But what I want people to know about that is, there is a lot more stories out there like my mom, where there are gene mutations, but it's so common that people who smoke, those are the people who get lung cancer. So the stigma attaches that lung cancer is a smoker's disease, and that's not necessarily always the case. My mom said this a lot, and I firmly believe it too. Is anybody with lungs can get lung cancer? You're susceptible to it because you have lungs, and so I think like kind of the whole goal behind this is these are precious lives that are fighting this terrible disease. And after having to see what my mom had to go through, and having to deal with that as a family, I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. And so that's why it's so important to me, through everything that I do, to try to make sure that any platform I'm being given, like this one right here, which is why I'm so grateful for it, is to use that platform for a greater good, to let people understand that like early screening is super important, and understanding that the stigma, you don't have to be defeated. You didn't already lose, and even if you did smoke, you're still alive. You still matter, and there's no point of giving up. And I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done in that field for sure, to kind of get to the bottom of this whole thing, because lung cancer is very deadly. And it mutates very fastly throughout the body. And, I've experienced that with my mom. And I just feel like, that's something that needs to be addressed for sure moving forward.
Well, I will say, if people want to support or help spread the word on this incredible cause, you can just look at the website on the bottom of our screen. You can also just go out and Google Punting Cancer Away, and you will find everything you need there. I know you've already raised over 7,000. The goal is 36, and I'm hoping you absolutely blow that out of the water. And the last thing I'd say is, from all of us who have been touched by cancer, thank you for doing this and for the way you're honoring your mom. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. The honor is absolutely mine. And let's just go beat this terrible disease. We're all tired of it. It affects a lot of people, and it's sad to hear some of the stories that are around. But let's try to turn this into something positive. Let's try to gather ourselves together as a community, because together we're stronger than ourselves individually, and we can take this down together. So thank you so much for giving me the platform to be able to say that, because I think it's really important. So
Thank you, Hudson.
thank you.
Might go 5 deep at running back, go to the outside, and a hit and a shed of Sadiq. Sadiq, touchdown! That's a big boy score for the Ducks.
Kenyon Sadiq, about as freakish a player as there is in the country. Of course, a great tight end for Oregon. And Jake won the Mackey Award as the nation's top tight end at Michigan. Loves to study the position. We constantly talk tight ends when we're on the camp tour. So let's get into it. Your top 5 tight ends in the Big Ten so far.
It's the moment you've all been waiting for.
Yes, it is.
It's
Drum
Jake
roll,
Butt's
please.
tight end list. There's a theme. You have to block to be on my list here, Dave, okay?
Fair enough.
We're going to throw out the stats, but Kenyon Sadiq opens at number 1. He's got great stats. I mean, he reminds me of Brock Bowers. There's really not a weakness to his game. His offensive coordinator told us ahead of their game week 1. He's a playmaker, not just a tight end. He said he's one of the best playmakers in college football. We've seen that. He can really score from anywhere with the ball in his hands. He can run through you. He can jump over you. But what's so impressive on tape, this guy is pancaking linebackers, defensive ends, safeties. He is really the centerpiece of this talented Oregon Duck offense, and I think his best football is ahead of him. Future first-round pick. I mean, look at the highlights. He's unbelievable.
I was in Eugene before last season. I had lunch with their tight ends coach, Drew Maringer, and we were talking about Terrence Ferguson. And he said, just wait until you see his backup.
That's what they keep saying?
You won't believe his backup. And, of course, the backup was Sadiq.
He was right.
He was right.
Prophetic.
Yes. So who's number 2?
Number 2, we're going to Ann Arbor, Marlon Klein. You know, they have whispered about Marlon for a few years. They were so excited about Colson, but they said Marlon Klein has that same potential, first-round pick potential. He's top 5 fastest guys on the team at about 260 pounds. So that's unheard of. We saw his explosive playmaking potential week 1, but what really showed up, his absence week 2. There was a complete void, not just in the passing game downfield, but you see right there, that's what I saw on the New Mexico tape, cleaning out entire sides of New Mexico's defensive line. So he is the total package, and I think his best football is ahead of him as well.
We'll hope he gets healthy here and gets back on the field. They, to your point, really could have used him against Oklahoma. Who's number 3?
Max Clare. Slow start. In my opinion, he is still, I'm looking at his Purdue film. I'm taking everything into account here. In my opinion, he's a mini Colston Loveland. He has first-round potential. It's just there's a lot of mouths to feed in Columbus. You know, last year for Ohio State, their big 3 was Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and Carnell Tate. Well, Emeka Egbuka is gone. This year, it will be. We haven't seen it yet, but I just believe it's going to take time. It's going to be Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Max Clare is their 3rd best receiving tight end. We haven't seen it yet, but trust me, it'll show up.
To your point, just 2 catches so far. He was over 50 last year at Purdue. How about the next one?
All right, we'll go through the next 2. I know we're short on time. Number 4 is Luke Lindenmeyer from Nebraska. Had a great start to the season. I think his impact goes far beyond just the stats. He's a leader. He's a heartbeat. One-handed catches. He almost had a touchdown against Cincinnati, dragging defenders. And he proposed to his girlfriend. You get bonus points in my book. He's a classic heartthrob. And at number 5 is Luke Reynolds, the sophomore tight end from Penn State. Not much week 1, week 2, led the team in targets, led the team in receptions. He's a former 5-star, and he's just a throwback tight end, a big traditional Y that runs routes well and is great after the catch. We know Penn State likes to use their tight ends. I think Reynolds is next in line.
Yes, it's funny. We were talking about shoes to fill with Klein, and there's some shoes to fill at Penn State as well. That's going to do it for us on Big Ten Today. Tomorrow, Kirk Ferentz on the show with Rick Pizzo and Wani. I will see you on Saturday.